Hello, Divine Ones. This is Ashley for FD1111 Ministries. This is the prophetic reading for the full moon in the sign of Gemini on the 18th of December at 11:36 p.m. So I'm just clearing the space here with a lavender incense. You can find these listed in my shop. So this full moon happens in the third decan of Sagittarius at 27 degrees. So that is ruled by the 10 of Wands, and opposite is the 10 of Swords. So here we have an absolute here with the Lord of Oppression, and ruled by Saturn. In my deck, it is the 10 of Flames, the prophet Daniel, and the Lion's Den. So I'm going to tie all these messages together. And then opposite, the 10 of Wands, Cain and Abel. So this whole energy, the prophetic message part is about betrayal, but it's more so betrayal not with outside parties, but more so about the conflicting energy within ourselves. I do encourage you to check out the blog posts. I have journal prompts there, as well as a lot of the astro information surrounding this moon activation, as well as the Galactic Sun. That will be listed in the show notes if you're listening to the podcast, and listed down below in the description if you're watching this on YouTube. This full moon happens in the 13th sign of the zodiac, known as Ophiuchus, and that is in between Scorpio and Sagittarius. This is the snake charmer, the Greek god Apollo wrestling a big snake. This is symbolic about that energy I was referring to before, about that inner wrestling. The snake represents the awakening, and the Apollo being the god of the sun, it represents what we focus on. So are we suppressing our true desires with the snake energy, or are we suppressing our awakening? So that could be two different ways. If you are feeding into the carnal mind, this could be you caving in to those carnal desires, or this could be you suppressing, trying to suppress your awakening experience. This can be highlighted in the collective, as we have a mass awakening happening right now that many people want to try to suppress. The moon is currently in Gemini. Mercury rules Gemini, and Mercury is currently in the sign of Capricorn. This can represent authority communicating something to you personally or to the collective. So it could be some information coming out worldwide, or either here in the States. This could be information coming out within your personal circumstances. The day after this full moon, on the 19th, Venus goes retrograde in the sign of Capricorn. So I do encourage you once again to check out that blog post, because I go in more detail with the astro events that are happening during this moon activation. With this decan in Sagittarius at the 27th degree, the third decan is ruled by the 10 of Wands, which is the 10 of Flames in my deck. This is the prophet Daniel, and Daniel in the Lion's Den. So the Lion's Den is a symbolic reference to our heart and what is really hidden in our heart, as the lion energy deals with Leo, and it deals with the heart, deals with our passions, deals with a lot of things that could be that we're hiding from ourselves, things that we could be scared of, like scared of our own power. You know, lions are very powerful. And Daniel, when he went into the lion's den, he faced his fears of being successful and powerful. So I'm going to synopsize the story, how he ended up in the lion's den. So Daniel, a very dedicated prophet, he was wise beyond all of the magi that the king Nebuchadnezzar had on his staff. The council became jealous of Daniel. He still prayed to his God. He was faithful. He was dedicated. They created this law. They tricked the king, and the king he gave Daniel high praises. He admired Daniel's wisdom, knowledge, and his spiritual gifts. So the other magi and the other prophets, etc., the king's council was jealous of him, and so they tricked the king into passing a decree. So that decree condemned Daniel to the lion's den. So of course the king was very upset about this, because that was his bestie, and so he had to follow his own law. So these are two dedicated men Daniel complied to the law, and the king also had to comply to the law. So while Daniel was in that den, he faced his fears. He faced his fears of stepping into his true power. And that was a test, as we all have to go through our tests before we can pass that threshold to true success. We have to face that fear of failure. We have to face the fear of our true potential. On the opposite end of the spectrum, so Daniel, in this message, he was betrayed, but he passed the test. He moved to another realm of rulership. On the other end of the spectrum, with the 10 of Wands, which is the 10 of Swords, we have Cain and Abel. And with that story, it's another story of betrayal. It was the first real documented instance of betrayal in the Old Testament. Two brothers, both required to bring a sacrifice. So the sacrifice to Yahweh, God. So the sacrifice could be something that you have to offer in exchange for your blessing. Now, it's not done by works, but it's done by the heart. What you really, once again, we're making reference to the heart here. What you really feel in your heart is blocking you. Offer it up to God. Offer it up to your angels, to your ancestors, because it's holding you back. That inner wrestling back and forth between, should I give this up or should I not? So between the two, one offered from the heart, one did not. One offered from the carnal circumstance, offered from the limited understanding. And one was highlighted and revered, the other one was not. So that other one, Cain, he murdered his brother, pretty much. So one thing I want to point out here is that Daniel is an external reference. It was outside betrayal. Cain and Abel symbolically represents our inner turmoil within ourselves. You have the masculine, the ego, and you have the feminine, the intuitive. And intuitively, we may feel like we are supposed to do something, but our masculine energy or our ego blocks it. So Cain tried to block Abel. He may have killed his body, but he didn't kill the spirit. So that spirit was victorious. So that Cain and Abel situation represents things that you know that you are intuitively supposed to step into, that you're supposed to sacrifice, but you're afraid to sacrifice it. God, your angels are saying, yes, sacrifice it. Lay it down at the altar. Step into your true power. Don't hold yourself back. The 27th degree of Sagittarius Sabian symbol is sculptor's vision slowly taking form. So the sculptor represents God, but it also represents the God that lives within you. So is the God within you allowing God to give you that vision, to allow it to come to form? Or are you wrestling within yourself? Are you your own stumbling block? Are you blocking your own true success? God has a promise for you, has a great vision for you and for your life, but are you blocking that? Are you allowing that vision to take form in your life? Or are you afraid to step into your true power? Take the analogy of the sculptor. A sculptor has a vision in his or her mind. So it starts in the mind. It takes form in the heart. The passion, the drive to be able to see that vision through till the end. Now it's time to execute. To physically take that vision from the mind, pair it with the passion to bring forth something in the physical. The sculptor takes the slab of rock and chisels away slowly to perfect that vision in the physical. Maybe you need to revisit a project, a relationship, your finances, to allow that vision to take form. With the galactic center, the galactic sun, this galactic portal of energy, This is a portal of information that comes through from the other side, from the great unknown. I'm reminded of a scripture in the book of Job. Job going through it, you know, being tested. And he thinks that he knows more than what God knows, the ultimate source. While we may be manifestations of God, but in totality, we aren't God. We don't have all of the answers. This is speaking to scientists, mathematicians, governmental figures, leaders, world leaders, popes, preachers, you know, the whole nine, teachers, professors, all these people that think that they have the concrete answers, have the answers to everything. But in that scripture, God says, were you there when I laid the foundations of the earth? Do you know how I hung the stars up in the sky? Astrologers, you know, well, I'm not really an astrologer, but you know, all these different titles that we may put onto people and that we may attract to ourselves, when really we are just a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of an existence, where there's so many different existences out there in the great unknown. But even here on this earth, I could be in the same household with a person and they have a completely different reality than myself. We can take up the same space, but there's multi-dimensions stacked on top of each other. It brings me back to thou shalt not judge. It's a difference between discernment and judging. Judging is like a concrete, solidified answer. When we are just observers of our reality here and now, when there's so many different realities here and now. So I say all of that to say that there's infinite potential in the cosmos within us personally. I mean, there's so much dormant DNA within us. They call it junk DNA, but I mean, nothing's by accident, nothing's by coincidence. I'm gonna pull a couple cards. Okay, have faith in your dreams. Oop. Here. You know, what is the divine showing you, telling you to do? I hear obedience, being obedient to that call. Because it may be tough, but it's better than now. The reward will be better. And that card came out again. I'm reminded of obedience is better than sacrifice. It's better to follow the divine spirit, your angels, your guides, what they're telling you to do, instead of having to sacrifice something and not willingly sacrifice, you know, like a different type of sacrifice, like a sacrifice that isn't willingly given. So in this instance, obedience, the sacrifice of being obedient, the little bit of things that you have to sacrifice are holding you back anyway, compared to if you don't and you have to sacrifice, like things are taken away from you instead of you willingly offering up certain things. And the reward will be much greater than the sacrifice. Okay, emotions are running high and a personal issue reaches resolution. Emotional stability is what I hear. Allowing yourself to be emotionally stable and grounded in your energy. You will receive downloads. You will receive nudges, spiritual nudges. And you will be tested in those. But also to prove yourself on a higher plane and on a lower plane. The higher plane is like you receive those messages, they come through physically. whether through dreams or signs, synchronicities, prophets, whatever it may be. Now it's time for you to prove to yourself that you can do it and that it really was true. It's so many different layers to it. Because sometimes we have to, especially on a spiritual journey, things do have to eventually manifest. So that way your intuition can be strengthened and those intuitive nudges can be proven so you can move to the next phase. If a promise was given, but it never came to fruition, that would sort of kind of play on your intuition, on your spiritual relationship with your angels, your guides, the Holy Spirit. I dropped the card. Okay. Your commitment is being tested. Like I was saying, a test. They keep flying out my hand. All right. I think this is going to be the last one. A new romantic cycle begins. New moon in Libra. A new romantic cycle begins. Okay, and then we have one more. And I cut it again, and it says, your commitment is being tested. So it could be soul connections, it could be twin flames. It could just be like with your family dynamics, that your commitment is required, being committed to the call, to the cause. Could be with relationships, or it could just be with a task that the divine has given to you personally. If you're being called to do it, then you have to stay committed to it. All right. Emotions are running high. Yeah. So the same cards will keep coming out. The first time when I cut the deck just now, before I pulled emotions are running high, same card came out again. Your commitment is being tested. Okay. Now here we have a new card. The answers you need are coming. Full moon in Gemini. Isn't that a coincidence? So this moon, you could receive some answers that you have been seeking. But I would say this. I do believe that Neptune has went direct, I believe. And with that, it can bring in tests, I would say. I wouldn't say they're necessarily tricks, but they could be tests. Like you maybe have been questioning some things, some downloads that you have gotten over the years or over the months or over the weeks. Now the manifestation will come, but there may be a final test attached to it. Here where the answers you need are coming. Full moon Gemini, it could happen now, or it could happen within this spectrum of time. Could be until the next new or full moon in Gemini. It just depends on the person. But the answers for some will come this full moon. Now those answers, because along with the card, your commitment is being tested. It could be an answer that you projected. It could have been an answer that you projected based on the lack of your faith, and being that you projected it out there with such great emotions. The other card with emotions run high. That you could have brought a false answer to yourself to be tested. All right. Confidence is key to success. Yeah, with their emotional instability, that it can throw those answers off, those confirmations off. So that's why when you receive a direct message from the divine spirit, hold fast to it. Don't question it. And if you have questions, it's a way how to ask those questions to receive a solidified answer. So that way you're not tricking yourself. Okay. That's why your spiritual practices are very important. And then here we go. Another Leo card. Okay, we have the new moon in Leo, then we have the full moon in Leo. So it could be a Leo, it could be a Gemini. Or this could have been something in your chart or in this other person's chart. Or it could have something to do with passion. I also mentioned Leo in the beginning of this prophetic reading because we had Daniel. He deals all with the lion energy. Don't let your pride get in the way. Your pride, that's an emotion, you know. Pride is an emotion. You think that you may be taken advantage of. You think that you may be getting the runaround. The divine spirit isn't giving you the right messages because it doesn't match up with your physical reality. But, you know, we are in a time of change, and everything requires faith. This message is about faith. Daniel, you know, his whole walk was about faith. Okay. I may pick one more. Okay, I cut the deck again. Once again, full moon in Gemini. The answers you need are coming. You know, someone may be asking when, why, how, etc. But if you really get caught up, or not really caught up, but occupied with your passions, with what the divine spirit has for you to do, you're not really focusing on the how, what, when, why, all of those typical questions. You will have this intuitive knowing about a certain situation that will keep you on the right path. You are good enough. Full moon in Virgo. You are good enough. You're worth whatever this is. Some people, I hear some people's prize may be so big that they're like, no way, that's not for me. You know, why would God do something like that for me? What have I done? What have I sacrificed? And sometimes, you know, like I was saying, obedience is better than sacrifice. Sometimes just being obedient, even when you don't have all the answers, that's the prize. That's the worthiness that you have proven yourself to be worthy, but it's not like earthly proving yourself to be worthy. That's not like you going purposely out of your way to prove something to somebody else. But that's like you proving yourself through faith to the divine and to yourself. Okay. I wanted to show you guys this. Okay. I found this. I was traveling yesterday and I happened to pull over and look, a holly. We're about to enter into the winter solstice, and this is one of the representations of Yule or the solstice. Couple updates. That leads me to some updates here. So the angel lunar planner is like almost done. I have like this much more to do. Depending on when you're watching this video, I will have one of the highlights from the calendar. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure that you do subscribe if you are watching this on YouTube, because I have so much more content that I want to share with you guys. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, you can follow the podcast on all major podcast platforms. You can check out our store down below in the description box or either in the show notes. I will be adding some new stuff to the store. Like how I mentioned before, I have the incense there, I have frankincense and myrrh, but I also have lavender. They smell lovely. They burn for like 40 to 60 minutes. They're handmade. I will also have some other stuff really soon. I've been working on all these different things that the divine spirit has me to work on, and it's all coming together, like all together by and by. So I know I've been saying for a while that the angel lunar planner is coming. Technically, the New Year's isn't until the spring equinox, so I'm not too far behind. And I'm still going to bring the serpent spirit animal video after I wrap up a lot of these other projects. So I love you guys much. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will talk to you guys on the next prophetic reading. Peace.